I know that Carlo had some
Oh, is
notes
it? Shit.
about the book. First off, I want to thank Jorge for writing this. I think that I don't know, it just came out, so I'm sure a lot of you haven't had a chance to delve right into it. And you don't even have it out yet. This is actually a really heartfelt book. It talks about not just immigration and the struggles that we face as immigrants in this country, because we all face very, very different struggles. But at the end of the day, they are all tied in with a lot of the same things, which is our struggle to love ourselves and to love ourselves in a system that doesn't make us feel like we can or that we should. And one of the things that I just wanted to thank Porter for is for shining a light not just on the struggles, but also on the love story that comes with the romance that comes with having to fall in love with yourself, even when you don't know how, even when society tells you at a young age that you shouldn't or that you can't, even when our parents are so worried with having to survive that they just don't have the right words to tell us how to love us. Again, without that's about it. I mean, I want to talk more about it, and we will once we sit down and have a conversation. So I'll let Jorge carry on the introduction, or do you want to go straight? No, we can. Let me. I'm gonna read a little bit from the book, and then once we're done with the book, we'll have a conversation. We'll have a Q and A. Hi everyone. Like to see faces now. I can see faces. And then I'll sign copies, and then we can take pictures and chat a little more. I didn't do it earlier because I was really nervous and I wanted to just like be at peace for a little bit. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming. So yes, I'm gonna get to it. I was gonna read the prologue, you guys, but I think I'll start with chapter one, and then we'll go. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna read the whole book. Yes, well,
Huh? Huh?
over there. Yeah, you know, like back in high school. Let me hold on. Let me make sure I want to read chapter one because it's. I want to see how long it is. It's 14 pages. Now I'm gonna read the prologue to you guys because I don't want to bore you. I don't want to bore you. Okay. But thank you so much for coming, guys. I'm an indie artist. I make films. That's my first career. This is my first book, and that's such a great turnout. It's amazing. Know I want to do this forever. So the fact that you guys are here supporting this means a lot to me. Um, and you know what? Before I start, I want to let you guys know. I wasn't gonna say it, but my sponsor said that I should say it. We sold 33,000 units on day one yesterday.
Damn. Good job. All right.
I had about 78,000 pre-orders. So that doesn't include like that was. So I don't really know what the numbers are now because pre-orders don't get comes into like next week. So um, so thank you for uh, putting me on the road towards hopefully bestseller. And if it doesn't happen, it's all good. I don't really care about that. But as a Latino, undocumented Latino, I think it's important to showcase these things. So I just wanted to say that. Okay, so I'm gonna read a little excerpt from the book, and then we'll go into Q and A. And yeah, hi.
Come on in.
Coming in. We're just getting started. Awesome. And I do apologize. I haven't read out loud in a long time, so if I get stuck or something, uh, don't make fun of me. We're doing something. Record it for 10 seconds. All right. Is this better?
Yeah, there you go.
Can I bring stuff? I've always thought of myself as someone who, although it sits between two worlds, is always met with ni aquí, ni allá, neither from here nor from there. Born in Mexico and brought to the United States when I was 9, just old enough to understand that I was now an outsider in a place that would never truly see me as one of its own. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a reality. I wasn't completely Mexican, but I wasn't American either. For much of my life, I was a child without a home, caught in the liminal space between two identities, unable to fully claim either. The truth is, that sense of otherness never fully went away. It has followed me throughout my childhood and well into my adulthood. If I ever quite fit in anywhere, I have carried that weight with me for years. Navigating my life in the US as a young immigrant with the added pressure of being an upper recipient only made that feeling even more intense. The world around me moved forward, but I wasn't just. Can you hear me? Okay. The world around me moved forward, but I wasn't just out of reach, stuck in a space between doors. Sorry, let me start it again. The world around me moved forward, but I was always just out of reach, stuck in a space where doors were closed to me before I even had a chance to knock. If I'm being honest with myself, the most profound struggle wasn't about borders or identity. It wasn't about feeling misplaced or unheard. It's about love, or rather lack of it. Not love from others, but that was often hard to come by, but love for myself. For so long, I didn't know how to love who I was, who I had become. I didn't know how to love the child I was forced to leave behind in Mexico, the teenager who felt unworthy, or the man that I was growing into in a world that seemed to keep telling me I didn't belong. Which leads me to the following. I didn't grow up dreaming of becoming a filmmaker. It wasn't some childhood fantasy that stayed with me throughout the years. In fact, it wasn't even on my radar until almost by accident. I found myself holding an iPhone, a boom mic, and a wild thought that maybe I could make a film. Realization was born from that impulse. Shot on $100 budget with no formal training, no crew, no experience, just a passion for storytelling and the belief that I could somehow make something that felt real. It was messy, it was raw and uncertain, but it was mine. Somehow, I was enough. The more I created, the more I realized that filmmaking wasn't just about work. It wasn't about creating something good or successful. It was about giving pieces of myself to the world, about allowing people to see parts of me I had spent years hiding. Each frame was an opportunity to open up, to let down my guard, to embrace my messy, vulnerable, and perfect parts of me that I had never known how to love. With every story I told, I found myself loving the process more, loving the art of telling a story more. But more than that, I found myself learning to love who I was. I was becoming the version of myself that I always dreamed of, but I didn't know how to find. But there was a time before all of that, a time where I wasn't sure if I even wanted to keep going. A time when I felt so lost and trapped by everything that seemed to be working against me that I believed the world would be better off without me. There was a night, a dark moment when I tried to end it all. It wasn't just about the external battles I was facing, the obstacles in my path. It was an internal battle, a battle with my own worth, my own sense of purpose. A part of me didn't know how to keep going when I felt like everything I wanted, everything I dreamed of was out of reach. When every door seemed to shut before I could even knock. But in the darkness, something like unexpected happened. I found love, not a grand, heroic love, but a quiet, fierce love for life, for my life. In depth of despair, I found the strength to realize that I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I wasn't just existing, I had something to offer to the world. I realized my purpose wasn't to endure, but to create. I had to love inside of me, and I needed to let it, I had love inside of me, and I needed to let it out to share it with the world. That love became my driving force. When people talk about my rise as a filmmaker, about the awards, the film accolades, and the recognition, they often see only the surface. They don't see the struggles behind every film, the countless hours of doubt, the nights spent wondering if I was crazy for pushing forward, for breaking the rules, for telling stories that the industry wasn't ready to hear. They don't see the moments of questioning, the fear, and the times when I thought I couldn't keep going, when I thought I was out of my depth. But through it all, there was love, the love I had for the stories, the love I was beginning to have for myself, and the love I felt for the people who trusted me to tell their stories. Every project from Valentina, with its $500 budget, to Lolita, with its $350,000 budget, was an act of love. The vulnerability of each film reflected my own vulnerability. The rawness of every story mirrored my own struggles, my own battles to belong to love and to be loved. People didn't see the nights I spent alone, doubting myself, wondering if I was crazy to push forward. But I kept going. Love is a strange thing. It's not always pretty. It's messy, painful, and sometimes it feels unreachable. But love is also the thing that pushes us forward when everything else is telling us to stop. It's the force that keeps us going when we feel like we have nothing left. For me, love is what carried me throughout, what scared me throughout. Even when the odds were stuck against me, love was there. Love was there, woven into the rawness of my work and in the vulnerability of each frame. This book is about that journey, the one that began with a dream, an iPhone, and the unshakable desire to create. It's about the struggle that shaped me, the love that I found for myself, and the stories that continue to tell. It's about the people who inspire me, the lessons I learned, how despite everything, the pain, the setbacks, and the darkness at a point. Fueled by what? Love. And I hope that by reading this, I hope that you by reading this, you'll understand that if I, a kid from Mexico with no formal training to make it in this industry, then maybe just maybe there's so for all of us who are still fighting to be seen. So the book is on love, clearly. It's crazy because when you're writing a book, you go through all this editing process, and and it's not if you read it out loud, it feels sort of repetitive, but it is what it is what really I am. I have nothing but love for people, and I'm not ashamed that I wrote it more than 20 times in my prologue because I approach everything with love, and I think that um, if people if people practiced more love, we'd be a better society. Unfortunately, people don't care. So I hope that when they read this, they might understand where I'm coming from. They might understand where there's been times where I decided to dismiss myself instead of staying in the place just to be uncomfortable, you know? Because out of that self love, I learned to just embrace my solitude or my darkest moments, even my darkest moments, my winnings, everything. Because there's it's more than that, if that makes sense. It's more than that. It's just love makes everything better. I'm not trying to be more, by the way. No. Yes, you can do that on your own, but I do want to. We're gonna have a conversation with my good friend Gerardo, and you together with Gerardo.
Let's go.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Or do you want to? But I don't know if they. Can we pull the mics all the way over there? Yeah. Yeah. To these seats. Yes. Yeah. We absolutely. Oh, I want to make a TikTok about you guys. I do.
Shoot it.
All right, so let's get into this. This is actually a really beautiful book. Um, the first thing I'm going to ask you is just kind of like a one-on question. Here's going, but at the end of the book, you mentioned that the throughout the book, as you were writing it, there were moments where you would break down. There were moments where you felt like you were healing. There were moments where you felt like you were grappling with a lot of the things that you had grappled with before. What was the hardest chapter for you to write? Well, the whole book as a whole was really difficult because I had written a book about 7 years ago called Zero Fucks Left, and it was like this angry book, and I was like outing people, not outing people, like I had changed names, but I was like discussing people that had been really shitty to me throughout my career, my life, and then after I got married, that's when I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? So I started to do rewrites and I started to just eventually put the book away. And I started focusing on writing a book about love. And doing that, coming from a place of anger, was very difficult because I wanted to just shit on people. I was like, look, but um, part of realizing that it's not really worth it because then I'm giving attention to other people and whatever, not getting into that. But I just decided to rewrite everything again from the perspective of my identity and where I came from and how through love, with love, I've been able to move forward. And that was very difficult because it meant I had to become really vulnerable and put things in the book that I hadn't even discussed with my husband, you know? Really? Yeah. You hadn't even discussed with him? No. Some of those things? No. What chapters were the ones that caught him by surprise? I think as he keeps reading, he just keeps telling me, you know? Yeah, that's the other thing. So it's not an easy read, It's not. There's some really heavy things in there, and I think for me, there's one chapter, and actually, what we're going to talk about. This is my favorite chapter in the book, and it was a really when I first looked at it, it was about your high school experience, and and when I started reading it, I was expecting just what you normally hear from people as teenagers.
Yeah.
And then you really went into it, and you started talking about how there were moments where there was a moment where your mom decided to make a decision to move somewhere else because it was better. And because of that, you struggled even more in that school because everyone was white or Asian.
Yeah.
You felt like you were an outsider. And the very few Latinos that were there, these were teenagers, right? Because we're in high school. A lot of the teenagers, the few Latinos that were there were able to find each other. But there was all of these issues that were holding everyone back.
Yeah.
You had like the administration wouldn't was steering you away from AP classes instead of encouraging you to take them because they didn't feel like y'all were capable of them. When you were losing, and I hate to spoil so much, but this is a really important chapter, and I think it's something that people, when you read it, you have to really be able to point this out because I mentioned it to you. You were like, I hadn't actually paid attention to it, right? So in a lot of it, you talk about the ways the system in high school was not letting you move forward and how when they finally told you you had to go to a different school to earn the credits that you had lost because of the system, because of the way they treated you, because of the way they made you feel hopeless, they threw you away.
Yeah.
And right. And they made you feel like an outsider. They made you feel like you didn't belong. They discouraged you from being as successful as you could be. They didn't help you. And then, when it was time for them to shush you away, they did it in a way that was like clinical, no emotion, just you have to go. You're just a problem that we need to fix. The thing that was really heartbreaking to me reading that chapter was that one, I could tell that you were just writing your truth. But two, I could see the system that we all face as adults. You had to face them before you were even emotionally mature enough to handle it like an adult, right? Was that on purpose? Or is that something that you are looking back at now and realizing? And how have you processed that?
I hadn't told the story to anybody, so I just wrote it how it came out of me. Well, I mean, I did rewrite someone up, but like when I initially wrote it, I just wrote it the way I remember it. And it's crazy because like I remember growing up in LA, and then it was my sister who said, "We're gonna move to Torrance, and it's gonna be a better school." And I feel like there's this misconception that if you go to a predominantly white school, it's better. And I hope that it wasn't even like parents, but I just hope that our elders or the people that are in charge of putting their kids in schools will stop doing that because it doesn't make a difference. You're going to succeed whether you want or not because it's your kid, not, their surroundings. But first of all, that was the first thing, right? It's a better school. And then, being there, because I was Latino, they put me on all these ESL classes, even though I didn't need to. And I'll never remember the counselor saying to me, we have to send you to a continuation school, otherwise, you'll probably not graduate and you'll end up working for a waste management company picking up trash. And I was like, that'd be cool, because I knew that I was undocumented. There was no way I could even aspire to that. But if I could, I'd be okay with that because that means that we would have a job. So you see how the mentality is so crazy, right?
Yeah, I think that it was so heartbreaking to me, particularly because it was just a precursor of what you were going to face as an adult. And you had to face it at a young age, at an age where most kids are just worried about
Their questions and their crush.
yeah,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah.
going through puberty, that's a whole story. Like, going through puberty is already hard enough.
Yeah.
You're fighting your parents, you're fighting your teachers, you're fighting yourself. And now you have to deal with a system that's already showing you from that age that you have to deal with being an outsider.
Yeah.
Because you don't even have the capability. You might have the capability, but you don't have the possibility to be more than what they say you can be.
Yeah, and I love that they sent me to appreciation school because that's where I discovered Shakespeare and politics. And my high school teacher and principal were just here right now, and they have to go. But I was telling them how we used to debate about the Bush administration, and obviously let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. But no, I learned values in appreciation school. I learned about that I could be a writer, that I could be anything I wanted. Kirsty Cherry High School is the reason why I ended up in law school because I wanted to be an attorney. And then after I graduated, I became a filmmaker. And it's and I say that this happened twice because I don't know exactly how many years later, but my niece, the same counselor, tried to do the same thing to her, and I stood up for her. I was like, well, now you have to face him. I mean, remember me? You wanted me to work in waste management? I just graduated law school. I'm like, damn. I was like, my niece what? I was like, she's what? I was like, no. So she chose to go to the continuation school as well. Because
This is why your book and the things that you publish are so important. I've already talked to you about this a million times, but it's important that everyone hear this. That especially in times like this where the administration we're under and the way that they're treating us and the way that they are trying to dehumanize us, when people see this kind of success, it gives them hope, because I grew up in the same thing. My mom used to always tell me, oh, they live in a nice neighborhood with white people. Like, because I'm from Texas, and I don't know if I know this, but Texas Latinos, that's a whole different story. I love you guys are so proud you love yourselves, your culture so much here. You fight for each other, like physically. You will show up and throw things at cops. They don't do that in Texas. In Texas, they're like, well,
they'll side with the cops.
Yeah. Well, why are they acting like that? So I think that especially me being able to, I came from similar places you, right? And being able to look into your story, because I actually was a teenager when I got my documents, right? Because I'm privileged enough to have my own documents. But that was stuff that I hadn't processed. Like everything you went through, I went through a predominantly Latino school, so I didn't really get to feel that. But what you felt, what you were going through in that chapter was just so hard to read.
One of the crazy parts, just to interrupt you, but even when I was we go back to the name of the title, right? I had a chapter that I removed on the book, but I'll talk about it briefly. Where when I was at a predominantly Latino school, I was too white for them, and because my story wasn't that you didn't cross the border, you came here with a visa, and that's following me through years. Like, I guess there's a privilege to that. I guess there is a privilege to that, but it was always like, oh, well, you don't belong here either because you have to struggle the way we have. So it's always been Aqui, and I've had to build my own identity, and I have to work on my own on that, because if I operate based on what the masses say, then I'm gonna be all like, well, I don't belong anywhere, But it's one of those things where it happens on both sides,
Yeah.
And another example, like you look into all these lists about like bestseller lists and this and that, and I mention this because I was talking to a publisher, and they're like, "Well, that's amazing. That's like 100,000 copies, but to be a bestseller, you need to sell at least 500,000." And I'm like, so my accomplishment is still not enough, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, because your book's niche, and it's like, okay, well,
It's a niche. It's a niche. It's not just a story about a human being.
yeah.
It's
But do you know what I'm saying? Though?
Yeah.
So it's like I made a mess with that. Like I'll be from wherever you want me to be. And the title was more sarcastic now to me because I don't care. Like I don't care what what you think about myself in terms of like my identity. If I'm not Mexican enough, or if I'm not American enough for you, or if I'm in and this word was removed, but they brought it back. But like if I'm an illegal, which I don't like that word, or not like 100%, whatever you want me to be, I'll be. That's fine. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. When we go throughout the book, one of the things I found really interesting, because when I went into the book, I was expecting it to just be a story about being undocumented, right? Because that's what you expect when you hear about a book like this. But then you started delving into your love story with your partner, your love story with yourself, with there were there was your connection with your friends and how you have learned to create friendships, how you lost friendships. And one of the things that and I highlighted it like how many times love, that word love, it's not just allowed in the prologue. It's throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
It's the string that kind of like ties it all together, right? You go there's and what I found really interesting was that you didn't polish it for us, right? We saw love is on one side, right?
Yeah.
But when we have love as a human being, we also have pain.
Yeah.
We have hate. We have the ugly things about life too, right? And because you spoke about love, you also spoke about the ways in which you inflicted pain upon yourself, even when you inflicted it on others, when others inflicted it on you, the way that you internalize hate for yourself, but also the way you loved others and the way they loved you and the way that you loved them.
Yeah.
Why was it? And it was raw. I mean, he went in and you told us about the some of the darkest places you've been, right? Why was that so important for you to be so candid about? I think I already know the answer, but I think it's a question that needs to be asked.
Well, because I have to be honest with myself. I'm not just gonna write a book about all the greatness, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a reason why there's a chapter there called "Confessions from from a shitty friend," you know, from an almost shitty friend. And I talk about how I've been the problem in friendships. I talk about how me growing up with the idea that friendships don't really exist, which is false. Friendships do exist. But growing up with that idea made me create this like wall to the point where I mess up friendships, you know? And I still do it sometimes. I catch myself and I have to stop. And then I'm like, hold on, you know, like, yeah, sorry about that. Or, you know, I call myself out. But the reason why I did that, the reason why I saw it so raw and so real, is because I'm not perfect. That's the last thing that I want people to think about me. And again, I know I said that I don't care what they think, but if they're gonna think something, they should know that I'm not perfect, right? And that's the reason why I went really deep into certain chapters of my life. Um, because it's important. It's important to if I can't be honest about myself, then I'm being honest with nobody. I'm not being honest with anybody. Sorry.
It's also important to, and I just want to ask this because I think it's a really beautiful thing about the book is the way that you search for love in yourself, search for love from society, and you even express gratitude and love to America as much
Yeah.
as you hate it, as much as it hates the
I don't
government.
hate it, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
as much as the government hates. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
what I meant. But I think that what the reason why all of those chapters meant so much to me reading them was because in this life, in the way that we have to navigate um, as immigrants, especially when immigrants do not have their documents, it's so important to love.
Yeah.
Like it's so important to love and to celebrate. You know, because when you don't, if you let them win, right? Love is kind of like the seed that gives hope. Without hope, there's no action.
Yeah.
Without action, we let them win. And all of those, there's a chapter on how you met your husband, how you fell in love. There's a chapter on, you know, the friends that you gave second chances to.
Yeah.
All of that is so critical and so important. And it's not perfect, right? Like you said, there's like really wrong moments, but it's so necessary to capture those moments because we're human beings. And the moment we try to polish ourselves up too much to fit in, and we try to hide all of the things that make us human that people don't want to see.
Yeah.
Then we let them dehumanize us.
Mhm.
But we can't do that. So I really appreciate you for writing those things into the book fearlessly. Some people would be too scared to do it.
It was scary, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
I mean, I still haven't talked to my mom. She's here, but we haven't talked about what she thinks about the book. You know, and I know she read it, and you know, she said she had some questions about it. But it's scary because I don't know what I don't know what there's things from my childhood that she doesn't know that I went through. You know, and that I didn't think were traumatic, and now that I'm writing about it, I'm like, damn, I don't ever want anybody to go through those things, right? So was scary, but again, it's all like the foundation of this book is it's love. And I'll give some clarity of that. We come to this country and we come for the American dream, and all we do end up doing is working, right? And we take whatever job that's given to us, and we take whatever salary is given to us, because what we have to be what grateful. And when you're being grateful for when you're doing a job that doesn't, let me rephrase that, when you're doing a job that needs you to get another job to be able to survive, you're just now being paid, and you stop loving yourself because you become too afraid to realize that you're able to aspire for more. But because society says that you're undocumented and you need to work, and you need to put food on the table, and you can't have any fun, you can't enjoy any little single thing in life, and all the money you make, you save and save and save and save. You don't enjoy anything. You stop loving yourself, and then what happens? You become really sad and angry,
Yeah.
and bitter, and you, and it's like now you look around you and it's like I wish I would have done this, but you still have that guilt, right? So that's why I talk about self love. That's what I mean. Not the self love where I'm gonna set my body the way it is. Yeah, I mean I've all come to terms with that. I have been really fit and I'm gaining a lot of weight, and that's the least of my worries now. I think when I talk about self love is being able to understand that when I say no, um, I'm claiming my power. When I choose not to associate myself with certain people, I'm claiming my power. I'm choosing to love myself in many ways that I'm only willing to do the things that make me happy. And happiness is not for everything. So whenever I'm not happy, as long as I'm at peace, then that's still amazing. So that's where it comes from. I grew up with family that, just work, and they don't know what it is to take a vacation. I mean, this is embarrassing, but I've traveled more with my husband than I ever did before. I think we've done like 14 trips together, and we've only been married for 2 years last Thursday, you know. And I've gone, my first time to New York was with him. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. I'm just realizing that right now. And then we were able to take my mom to New York for the first time. And it's like, what? And it's to other people, it's like, oh, you're dumb or whatever. Right? But no, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And, so we'll go through CSA, and even though there's nothing for me to worry about, I still worry about it. Like, it's these things that I'm slowly healing. And I remind myself, love.
Right. Yeah.
Because what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, well, the plane crashes. At least I tried.
Yeah. That's the worst thing.
I mean,
Hopefully
I
not.
got on that flight.
Oh yeah. I think that I think a lot of times we forget that we have to let ourselves be human,
Mhm.
because, like you said, you mentioned this right now, and you mentioned it a lot in the book. A lot of it is about survival.
Yes.
Right? We try to survive, where we become obsessed with perfection, because that's what's going to get us through.
Yeah.
But when we do that, we teach ourselves that we can't be human, and that being imperfect is not enough. But every human is imperfect.
Mhm.
We can't run away from imperfection. And I think part of the struggle that we face as immigrants, um, or as first generation Latinos, is having to accept that sometimes, regardless of how imperfect we are, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think you do a really beautiful job of embracing that. You talk about your addiction issues that you've had. You talk about, like, the anger that you've had towards people that have hurt you, the way people that have hurt you, the way they've been angry, the way you've forgiven, the way
Yeah.
you've learned not to forgive, or not to confuse forgiveness with access. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers to this
Mhm.
book, and I think it's really beautiful, because I think it really allows people to see that someone as successful as you were on the Al 100 list. You were on the Al 100. I'm sorry, when that happened, it made me feel alive. You were on that 100 list. You have awards. You have films. You have a book now. And I think it's so important that all of those imperfections and the perfect thing, the good things and the bad things were in that book, because it shows people you don't have to be perfect all the time in order to do something for the world.
Yeah.
In order to leave the world a better place. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Perfection, well, I wouldn't say it's boring, but I would also feel like if I say that, I'd be disrespecting anybody that is aspiring to be perfect. I would never judge people on that. But I will say that in the search of perfection, all of the joy is killed. You don't really enjoy anything. And I'm working on that too because I'm very type A. Unfortunately, like I'm all about like we need to have a schedule and we have this and we have that and now we married. My husband's like the opposite. He's like, let's just go and do this, let's just enjoy the moment. Like I remember like very early on he would say, stay present. And I'm like, I am. I wasn't. And it's crazy how you can notice that I wasn't present. This is why I married him. But it's all those things, and I still have that internal fight where sometimes, I want to just like I don't want him to go through what I went through because he's gone through his own things. But it's hard for someone that grew up in the United States to understand um, the traumas. I don't want to use that word because I feel like it's thrown out a lot. Let me rephrase that. The struggles that we've been through, right, and how they scar us, and we carry those scars forever. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But love has been made. Circle back.
So, we have time for like one more?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we have a lot of time.
okay. I was like, I don't know.
We're
You
here
told me
till-
30
we're
minutes.
here till 8 p.m.
But so my last question or my last two was like because it's really important to give you like the stage to communicate this. Like, what was your dream when you wrote this, and how do you want it to? What do you hope that it'll do for people?
Um, honestly, I now that okay, so I did I did my film right now is in like select theaters, and we did this whole tour in a bunch of cities. And I was meeting a lot of actor recipients, and I was meeting a lot of people, um, but, queer community and stuff, and you hear the stories how they resonated with my film, but how but it's a little sad because like to resonate with so much like pain. When I film to me was like I know other filmmakers be like, oh my god, that's amazing. Or to me it's like that's sad, like I'm sorry that you've gone through that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so I didn't I mean the book and the film my film are not like usually exclusive together, like they're not. But it's weird because timing works really weird. And if there's one thing that I can hope people get from this, or my dream, would be that they find love. Again, I know I keep saying that. It sounds like I'm gonna sound like cliche, but like you can take over the world if you believe in yourself. Like if you believe in yourself enough to know that you can do something, right? Um, and but all that comes from interior work, like work within. It comes from discipline. And when I talk, I like to spend a lot of time. But when it comes to like choosing peace over like other things, I would always choose like peace a lot. And again, it's something cliche, but maybe when you read the book, maybe you'll understand something different. But my dream is that everybody understands that they're unique. Because that's the other part of it. There's a very important chapter that talks about that. You spend all your life trying to become something to please others. When you're there, like you're such a gem yourself as it is. People will be crazy not to want to mess with you. Not mess with you, like that's the wrong word. Not to want to do business with you or be involved with you, right? Because we're also unique in so many different ways, and that's what I think that I want people to get out of this. Um, but we'll see. People will eventually tell me. I hope that they see the subtext of everything, which is not so much a struggle, but the aftermath of being able to like do something that is fabulous.
It's beautiful. Thank you for writing it. I actually, yeah, I was one of the, I was talking to your, what is the camera girl? So I was talking to her, and
You guys hired Yolo. She's amazing.
yeah, we were talking about that. Well, because yeah, I think it'll teach people to love themselves, but I do think it'll teach people to hope. I think that they'll learn to hope
Yeah.
because I think that we become so obsessed. Like again, this is gonna come up all the time, but like survival, we get so obsessed with survival that we forget that we have to, that it's okay to be human. There's a lot of moments where you're human in this book, where you allow yourself to just
be human and show your scars and show your pain. I personally just want to thank you because like when when you told me the book was going to be published, when you got on the Out 100 list, I already told you this. I don't think it's really hit you, but I was going through a really heavy time because I was crying a lot and I was really depressed because of everything going on in our community. And when I saw you reach those milestones, something I had stopped working on the podcast so much, I was starting to give up. I'm not gonna lie, I was really trying. I was going out to have to escape from the feelings that I was feeling. And if there's one thing that I want people to take from this book, is to remember that even in the darkest times, with everything going on in the world, he's proof that we can be so successful. I mean, we can be on the red carpet, on the Out 100, at the Out 100 gala, next to Goechi. You know what I mean? Toshi. Oh, I forgot. I don't even know her surname. But yeah, like we can do that. We can do that. You know what I mean? I think that that's something that I just wanted to make sure that everybody hears because when I saw that, I was like, whoa, wait, no, wait, I can still do this.
Yeah.
And I started working, I've been working nonstop for the past 2 months because of you. And I want you to know that you helped me a lot. So I think there's a lot of kids here, there's people here, there's older people, younger people, people of all ages. And a lot of us need to hear that. A lot of us need to see this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I pay attention to everything, and I know you had told me that you were going through it, and I remember, yeah. But that's the reason why I also like asked you to do this because I wanted you to know that you can, and I wanted you to know that I wanted you to know that I just went ask them, like, I want you to do this because I'm gonna be in this podcast, but I also feel like you know if there's one thing I can ask for in the last, because it'll be 10 years next year that in film industry, and I done so much despite what people think. I mean, I'm not gonna get to it, but I wish I had someone that would tell me from the beginning you can. It's been exhausting having to constantly tell myself that I can. Not that it's too good, even though it's exhausting. But it's always good to have community remind you that you can do things, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I was like, you know, I want you to do this, and the whole time, I know you could, Yeah,
I mean, I was like, oh my god.
guys, it was like it's been hilarious this whole process.
What's your birthday? And then it's like a book thing. It's your first book, and then everyone's here like looking at me.
I completely
It was stressful.
I know it's my birthday, but to me today has been about the book, right? And even my husband said the cake's here. I'm like, oh, he's like your birthday cake. I'm like, no, it's like the book cake. He's like, I was like, I guess it's both, but I don't know. I'm like, I just, but no, that's fine, and I know that there will be probably a time where I'll be in that position, and you'll come out and tell me that I can't do it because we forget these things.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
Of
I don't know. It's crazy. We got such a crazy tangent now.
we do. So let's open it up to everyone. If anybody has any questions or anything like that, or any statements, critiques.
You did. You tell
Yeah, she raised her hand.
Okay. Yeah.
Ella primero que lo.
So,
Oh,
well, first of all, congratulations on
Thank
it.
you.
I think it's I've read the book, and I think it's very intimate. And you do show a lot of vulnerability, but it's very very honest. So congratulations for
Thank
that.
you.
I wanted to ask you about the title because you say, well, I don't care, no, ni de aquí ni de allá. I don't care what people think. But I also heard like some people say, well, sí, soy de aquí, soy de allá, and I'm from here, I'm from there.
Mhm.
So, and that's my superpower, no?
Yeah.
So they kind of, that's an empowerment saying,
Yeah.
sí, soy de aquí, soy de allá, whatever people think. And I wanted to ask you about that. What do you think? You kind of turn it around.
Oh
and
yeah.
Say, yeah, that is my superpower.
No, 100%. I think that.
Sorry, and the
sorry.
second part is in the book you talk about your dad, and I think a lot of that is, and in a lot of literature is getting that acceptance from the father, and searching for that acceptance. I mean, I don't want to any spoilers, but yeah, you can tell us about that too. So
Yeah.
that was a very important part of the book.
Yeah, so it's crazy because I dedicated the entire book to my mom, but there's a whole chapter about my dad because my dad we I didn't grow up with a really like he was always almost absent, but we didn't have like a volatile relationship. It wasn't until we moved to the US that we started to like have a rocky relationship, and the entire time I thought it was because of my sexuality. When I finally came out to him, he said he didn't care about that. That was never the issue. So I love my dad, and I'm always gonna love him, uh, and I will always respect him. But our relationship now is way better than it was before, and it was important for me to write about that because despite like my parents having not a very good marriage, um, my mom never she never encouraged anything about and to never use their issues to see him in any other way. But yeah, no, he couldn't be here with us today because he got stuck working. Uh, because he told me like I should start a new job, so I can't make it. But I was like, it's totally fine that it's that guilt, that I talked about, the guilt and stuff. But um, yeah, he means a lot to me, and I'm glad that we were able to fix that. And then as far as the idea, yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be an ongoing thing when I tell people that the title is more sarcasm, um, because um, I'm Mexican. I mean, I love Mexico. My blood is Mexican. I always say that. Um, I'm also American because I grew up out here, and I think that as long as I have that in my mind, no matter what anyone else says about my identity, it'll stand, right? But it's sarcasm because it is our superpower. Um, right now that we're being so like attacked, people forget that having two languages in your brain is
Mhm.
an amazing thing.
Yeah, really is.
Like I'm bilingual, right? And it's like it's almost like now they kind of make it seem like it's a bad thing. So it is our superpower. I speak two languages, I write in two languages, I think in two languages, and going to New York Times very free. No, I mean it is. I'm bilingual, so it's a thing that it's a superpower. But it's sarcastic. The title is very sarcastic. Yeah, even because there's a movie from the yeah. Yeah, so it's very sarcastic.
Hello.
Hi.
I love your trajectory in like the film industry, and something that I think particularly in Latino spaces. There's a lot of talk like we don't need to hear any more immigrant stories and like immigration stories like let's move on. But I personally think that like immigrant stories resonate with every immigrant,
Yes.
whether you're Asian, whether you're Black, whether you're Latino. Why do you think that it's important to continue to tell your story, and how do you think that people that are not Latino are going to connect with it?
Well, I can continue telling these stories because it's my voice, and it's going to be a point of view that nobody's never gonna have the same. Because again, we're all so different. My point of view is going to be different from yours, and I think that's what it's going to allow me to either connect with audiences or have you disconnect. Because you have to remember, every time people like Hollywood, particularly when they talk about immigration stories, they think that immigrants are only Latinos. It's like this misconception. And what they're really saying is that they don't want to see Latinos in media, right? Because they equate immigrant means Latino, which means Mexican. And it's like this like little thing, right? So I've only done I think 2 films about immigration. And they weren't even like centered on immigration, but it was about immigrant parents. And I think the reason why they connected so much is because those were the stories about my mom and my sister. Like there were stories about me growing up with my sisters and my mom and how we came here, us and people, and how they always encouraged me to see life, not from the lens of being a documented person, but from the lens of you can do anything you want, right? So it's important that we continue telling these stories, but it's more important to learn how to shut out background noise because people are always gonna have an opinion. I mean, I just had a talk with a programmer at a really big festival. They were like, we can't take your film, blah, 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 but we encourage you not to make another film next year. That talks about struggles. Make something more family oriented. You know, like we have our eyes on you. You're the next festival named kid. You know, I'm not gonna name festival. You know, they said that to me like 4 times already. And I didn't make films about family. I made films about women. I made films about queer people. I think what they mean is that I need to make a film about religion that has a leading man that's not Latino, because that's what they're seeking now. But that's not who I am. I'm neither religious nor am I straight. So it's hard for me to like try to do something like that. But yeah, learn how to just shut the background noise and just continue telling your stories. That's important. I'm gonna be honest, I never thought that the book was gonna have such a turnout. I've been making films for like 10 years and it's still difficult. Like I made 8 films now and it's been very difficult. And one day I want to make a documentary about the differences, how they treat me different as an author than they treat me as a filmmaker. I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane. I don't understand. I don't understand why, but yeah, keep your voice, keep doing your thing, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You know what? I just wanted to point out, you met me when I started my first film, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I had my phone 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Oh,
So I just want to say that. That's so crazy. And you're here, you know. Listen, I think we met at a train station. She was the last station. It's insane. Okay, yeah, sorry. I just remember that. Sorry. Next question.
You know what? You know what? I want to say.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for publishing the book. The title is really relatable. There's a lot of Mexican American, a lot of Chicanos out here that feel like that, like Aqui,
Yeah.
de Mexico, over here in the United States too. You know, like when you know. So just that, you know, and then what you do with the filmmaking, like that's really powerful, man. That's your inspiration, man. That's all I gotta say. Yeah,
Appreciate that
yeah.
so much. Yeah, sorry.
Hi, what made you want to write this book?
Find
I
your seat
read
so much.
like I mentioned earlier, and it was a very angry book. It's a book that just was. I was just really angry when I wrote it. But mainly the reason why I decided to move forward with it was the dates that started happening. And I had already started writing the book, by the way. And it's not I started writing in June. But I started to put more time into it. I said, I think this needs to come out this year because my community is being, my Latino undocumented community is being targeted. And, you know, I want them to know that there's hope out there. I want them to know that despite what they're portraying us to be, we are the immigrants are the heroes of this country. And I'm not calling myself a hero at all. I'm not. But there's a sort of line